In this video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to grow microgreens for yourself, for your family, maybe also for your friends, without having to spend a lot of money on fancy trays or anything. We can just use trays that we probably have hanging around in our kitchen anyway. Now, I could record this video outside on my terrace where I can assure you the light is a whole lot better than it is here in my little kitchen. But I just want to show you that even if you live in an apartment like me, you can still grow microgreens. You don't need a whole lot of space. My kitchen counter here is 60 centimeters in width by 40 centimeters in depth. Now that's not a lot of room, and in practically all my videos you're going to see either garlic or spoons or a cup or something, because this is the only space I have. And yet I'm still able to prepare my trays without making too much mess. So let's see if I can show you how. Okay, so first of all, you need some trays, right? So here is a selection of different sizes and types you could use. Now, usually I buy my fruit and veg loose, not in trays, but some things always seem to come in trays, such as mushrooms and berries. This is an example of a mushroom tray, and these are berry trays. I think this was a berry tray as well. Little tray like this. The next thing you need to do is make sure your trays have holes in the bottom. Now, if they're berry trays, they probably have some holes in the bottom anyway, but I like to make extra ones because I'd rather have too many, not that I think there is such thing as too many, I'd rather have extra holes in my trays than not enough, because our microgreens, we don't want them sitting in soggy soil. That just causes problems. We want that soil to be able to drain really well. So I'd rather really go to town and just make loads and loads of holes. Sometimes I do exaggerate, but anyway, I take this thingy here. I don't know what you would call it. It's like a screwdriver, but it's just got a sort of a pointy end. And I place my tray on something soft and I just puncture it, and then I go in with my screwdriver and I just make the hole a little bit bigger like that. Another thing you could use, if you have any hanging around, old flower pots. Maybe you bought some herbs or something and you have an old flower pot. So the good thing about these little pots is they already have really nice drainage holes, so you don't need to have to bother. They've been done for you. Then I cut my pots down into shallow trays. I do this for a couple of reasons. First of all, microgreens don't need to be on deep trays of soil. They just don't need it. You're not growing them into full-size veggies. They're not going to be on the soil that long, so they don't need to be on a whole lot of soil. The other reason I like to have shallow trays is because at a certain point I want to be able to bottom water them. So that's when you place them onto a tray like that, and you no longer spray them on the top, but you add water to the tray below, and that's so the roots can drink up they can get their water from the tray below. And if you're using a deep pot such as this one, it's going to take your microgreens a long time to get their roots all the way down to those holes. So this way it's just easier for them. This pot here I use for coriander, because I actually grow coriander to its full size, so it is on the pot for a lot longer, and so this is the one I use for my coriander. It says don't rush me because coriander seems to be it takes its time. I don't want to say slow, yeah, it just takes its time. Okay, so you have your trays, they have holes in. Now it's time for the substrate, which is basically just something on which to grow your seeds. I think of it as a sort of a bed. I like to use an organic potting mix, but if you really don't want to be playing around with soil in your kitchen, maybe you think it makes too much mess, you could definitely use something like a hemp mat. I haven't used these in years, but just for sake of an experiment, I've cut a couple and I will place them on a couple of these trays just so we can see the difference. Okay, let's just get these two out of the way and I'll fill these up with soil. I like to use my hands, but I guess you could use a spoon if you want. So as I'm choosing the soil, I'm sort of breaking it up. I don't want any stones or any hard clumps or any big pieces of twig or anything like that. But this potting mix is actually really good. It doesn't have a whole lot of stuff in it. So I'm filling up the tray right to the top. And that's just because it makes harvesting easier. What I mean is, I want to harvest like this, flat. It just makes life easier. So I'm not packing it down, I'm just sort of spreading it out. But I'm not packing it down. So even though there is a little bit of mess on this tray, it's not on my counter. So this green tray is on my big IKEA tray. So I'm not really making any mess in my kitchen. Okay, let's put this one here as well. So you can see that the lids are a lot, they're really shallow, a lot more than these. So there's a teeny stone, remove that, and something like that, a little piece of wood, don't need that. I mean, the microgreens will probably grow past it, but I just want to make their life as easy as possible. So any hard stones, any little twigs, bits of wood, get rid of those. Okay, I think that's plenty. Right. Okay, so like I said, this one here is very shallow compared to this one. So this, I won't be using radish, for example, on this one, because radish is a bigger seed and it grows quite tall. So I'm going to give that the bigger tray, and I'll probably put something like red cabbage on this one. And now if you like, you can take your marker and write some initials onto your trays so you can remember what you're growing. Okay, let's start with this one, PR, purple radish. So when I'm doing teeny trays like this, I really don't bother to measure the amount of seed. You don't want too many, but I don't want to be stingy either. Alright, so that was basically a teaspoon. Okay, what's the next one? Rab, broccoli rab. Chimidirapa, it's one of my favourite veggies. Broccoli rab, chimidirapa. So I love this veg. The microgreens are really pungent, more than broccoli calabrese. So these are dark seeds, you can't really see. Yes, of course you can. Yeah, they're really quite pungent. They're sort of mustardy, and I don't love mustard, but they're really good for you. And so I grow them. And then I eat them mixed into salads and other stuff. But on their own, I do find that they're quite pungent. Okay, so oops. So here, I don't need a full teaspoon. It's probably plenty. Yeah, I do tend to exaggerate. Tatsoi. Yeah, that's plenty of these as well. You can also, with teeny seeds like this, you can put them into an old, yeah, that's plenty. Nicki, stop it. Put them away. You don't need any more. Goodness me. You can put them into an empty, what do you call it? Like an empty herb shaker, and just sort of shake them out like that. But I can't be bothered to do that. Red cabbage. I could have flattened this out a little bit better. Soil here. Yeah, I forgot to do that. So you don't really want like holes in your soil. You want it as smooth as possible. Not smooth, but you know, sort of evenly spread out soil. Not with pits and such. Well, I didn't really do that. Red cabbage is such a pretty microgreen. Has this beautiful purple stem. Red Russian kale. And I want to try and avoid knocking the seeds into the other trays. So this is red Russian kale. This is a very pretty microgreen. Nicki, enough seeds. Okay, that's enough. Stop it. Plenty. Black kale. Okay, that's more than enough. Right, on these hemp mats, I'm going to put the same seeds that are on these other shallow trays. But first of all, I'm going to spray them. But before I do that, I'm going to spray all of these. So you don't want to saturate them too much, but because this soil is dry, they do need something. They do need some water. And obviously less for the shallow ones, the really shallow ones. So I think I might give these a little bit more. Okay, this is what I'm using. This thingy here. Thingy, it's actually quite big. And you can change the nozzle to make it a finer mist if you need to. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to stack them. The lighter trays are going to go on the top, and the bigger ones on the bottom. I'm going to place them on another tray and then place another lid cover on top because I want to keep them in blackout. But before I do that, let's just put some seeds onto these hemp mats. So with hemp mats, I wet them first before adding the seeds because, I don't know, they seem to jump around a bit otherwise. Right, so I'm wetting these quite a lot. Okay, tatsoi and red cabbage. So these are going on top. Stacked them all. And now I'm just going to put these onto a separate tray and then cover them. So I've actually decided to stack them like this. Let's just cover them up. to keep them in blackout. Okay, let's have a look at this tray here. So, for me this is a perfect size for growing something like broccoli. I love broccoli microgreens. So I cut the tray down a little bit because it was a bit too deep, made holes, and then you need another tray with no holes, and that's going to go underneath this one because your microgreens will grow their roots downwards and they'll go through these holes, and that's when you will offer them water in the tray below. That's what we call bottom watering. And then again, it depends on what you're growing, but a little bit of weight can help. So I tend to put a tray on top like that. And again, it depends on what I'm growing. Maybe I will put a little bit of weight on there, a little bit of extra weight, something in there. For example, if I'm growing peas or sunflower, whoops, trays come away. If I'm growing peas or sunflower, I actually use this block. So I bought some blocks of this cocoa coir a few years ago, but I just didn't get on with it. So I just have these blocks and they're perfect. They fit in the tray perfectly. And this is 600 grams. So it's pretty heavy, but it works perfectly for this size tray for peas and sunflower. I wouldn't use it for something like broccoli. It doesn't seem like it's necessary. So you have your weight on your seeds, and at a certain point they will push it up. Then all you need to do is turn your tray over like that to leave them in what we call blackouts, as you can see here, in blackouts. Now this is a green tray. I actually prefer the black ones because that really does keep them in blackout. These green ones the light seems to go through them. But anyway, you can see what I mean. You don't want to have a transparent one. You want something that's sort of going to keep them in darkness. And when you do that, you're mimicking nature. The seeds, they have to push their way up through soil, so in darkness. And when you cover them like this, they're going to stretch up to look for light. So that will basically, they will stretch and you'll have taller microgreens. You don't want to keep them in blackout for too long because you don't want them too leggy, but that's basically what this top lid is going to be for. First of all, this way as a weight, and then up the other way to keep them in blackout. Okay, the soil is spread out nice and evenly, no pits or anything. I've spread it, I've filled the tray right to the top. That'll make harvesting easier when it's time to harvest. Now to sprinkle some seeds on. Well, I saved you the pain of having to watch me sprinkle the seeds out. I used 1.5 teaspoons. So now let's give them a misting. And now I'm going to place a weight on them. I think I'll put something in this. I want the broccoli to have a little bit more weight than this tray here. And now this is going to go on my shelf with the others. And that's it. Not a lot of mess at all. And here they are in blackouts in their temporary home, which is basically this trolley with wheels, so it's really handy if I want to move it around. And it has several shelves. At the moment, the bottom shelf has got some seeds and soak. These are in blackouts, and then I have these other shelves. So my top shelf also has some grow lights if I need them. Now, if I go around the back, I can show you the bottom watering. So look at these roots. These are peas. And so they're getting their water from the tray below, because the seeds, the peas don't need to get wet. If they get too wet, they risk rotting. So it's only the roots really that need water. So that's why we bottom water. Anyway, I will keep you updated and show you how these get on.